there is a vulgar saying that only a fool doesn't change his mind. And I see a change of mind as a sign of trying to live in the isness to some extent. So, following the heels of this, whatever decision one has made, if we have to live fully in the isness of life, then we could become what I may call some pariahs. We can become like social outcasts. So what can one do to be in balance, knowing that we live in this world? I find this a dilemma, because to be constantly changing one's position, in the light of present recent awareness or facts or circumstances entered into experience and all the like, will make one be considered a bit unstable, become unstable according to people when you go with the flow of life. So I don't know how we can be in balance while still living in the isness. You see, because this constant change of position, change of mind, will make one, will cast one in a certain light. I don't want to think whether it is negative or positive or what. So what do you say about this?
No, that's very good. First of all, the old idea was always balance. And so as we relate to the corporation members sometimes, it's not even about their so-called truth or whatever. It's about life as balance. Well, this was an idea that's been given, and Paul used it too. I don't really use it because, it's kind of like this. I'll give one example. Whether you're healthy or ill, so let's say when you're healthy, you're in balance. Let's say, and everything's fine. It's like, okay, that's balance. But when you're not healthy, is it that you cannot become more aware? You see, it's really not about the balance idea, and that's all according to the individual. It's because life is an isness. You don't have to decide about being in balance. You really don't. It's about recognizing your real awareness. That's better. You can supersede that. So even if you're sick or ill or crippled or whatever, you see, your awareness is not that. And so as you recognize these things that do not make sense and restrict you, well, you don't even need to consider balance. But here we have a challenge, all right? See, this becomes better when you recognize where you're at and you have the challenge. Well, what I do for myself is I always compare everything with the isness. I set this up in myself as a comparison, not an idea to where, oh, this is good, that's bad, I don't want to do this or what. No, I use it. I simply compare it, and what it does is that it kind of dissipates on its own. It's still there. I still have the reference, but the reality of it being something that's not dissipates. That becomes the difference. So I know this sounds a little confusing, but it's very, very simple. And so this is one avenue that I use for my personal self to better recognize the is, because it's endless. This is so cool. But I use other ways to do it too. And then there's the direct way, but there's many ways because I have the personal self also. So when people just focus on ideas, again, like health and balance and meditation, being calm, peace, and all this. Again, Paul said it, peace is not truth. And so in Paul's days, it was the truth idea. Today, I don't use that idea simply because everybody has their own truth. It's more than self-evident. So what is the truth? So when people come forward and say, oh, gee, I want the truth to be known, I'm here to tell the truth. Well, okay, so I would say that that's the best time to take your nap simply because everybody's going to exert their own truth. But again, maybe there's something there that you could utilize. But real truth is the actuality. This is what's so cool about finally recognizing the isness. In other words, it's not about balance because it already is. It's already complete. So what is it or idea that you could add to it that's going to make it better? Well, the best thing you can do is let go of all the ideas that you have of it and experience it for what it is and learn to recognize and perceive it. And then the best that you can, relate it to your personal self so that you can play back and forth off the ideas that you do create, so you better recognize it. You see, this is where you create your own momentum. And so these old ideas, again, these are old ideas, and if people want to use them, that's fine. But what happens lots of times is that people feel they create this comfort zone thinking that, Buddhism's been around for thousands of years. See, they always use the year idea, okay? Well, that tells me that, the older it is, the more stuck you're going to be in it. So again, you want to be stuck in it another 6 or 50,000 years because it sounds good. And see, you bring this in to you formulate this in a consciousness. Okay, consciousness is not reality. It's something created in creation, and you form your own consciousness about it, and you cling to this idea. Well, all of a sudden, you, in your mind, your literal self, the personal self, feels good about it because the personal self is really inadequate. And so anything that it can collect, it feels good about. It doesn't matter where it's from. It just feels good about it and feels safe, etc. But now all of a sudden, it's like a bunch of bumper stickers and dents in your car. You can collect those too as you're going down the road, but is that what you want? Is that going to make the car better? Okay, it's going to look funny. So in other words, all of a sudden you have to deal with the personal self because it's loaded up, because you need this personal self to recognize the isness, to recognize how to free yourself from it. It's very interesting how it works. And so, these ideas and balance and the other things that you said, I would say again, look at the new books that I've created, and even Paul used the word problem. I don't use that word. I didn't copy everything that he did. I expanded upon it, and that was the idea, to expand upon it. And others were considered for this position, but the boys didn't choose them because they would have done it the same. They didn't want it the same. So they chose the wildcat, the wild guy. And so it's not that I'm wild, it's just that, I just take the risk. And besides, I could see it, they couldn't. So, sorry. But it's choice. And a lot of people don't want to see it. But that's the best part. And so the challenge here is, and as people come to this, and I see it, is that you got to figure it out. And that's the best part. It's like an adventure that you go on. Would it be so that if you already knew how to parachute or fly a hang glider, that you would do it? No, the thrill and the adventure and the excitement is to go into the unknown to see if you can do it, and even if you will survive. You dare yourself to do that, and then all of a sudden when you do survive, it's like all of a sudden you see something you've never seen before. So this is stepping up and taking the risk. So if one of the boys, no matter who it is, asked you, would you like to do this or that, I would say okay. Even though you've never done it, your literal mind will say, well, gee, I've never done that. Maybe you get somebody more qualified or whatever. They're just going to walk away, and you blew it. The thing being is that they don't care if you can do it or not. They'll show you. Okay, all you have to do is take the risk. So I would say pay attention. But these old ideas, again, yes, thank you for bringing them up, and we can go over many of them. They do sound good, but they really don't work because the whole of life is better. Better than balance, better than freedom, better than love. It's just a whole lot better. You got to recognize it. And so if you do, lucky you. Yeah, and here's the idea too, and that is that I get attitudes from people all the time. And so for those that really do recognize the is and stand real with it, eventually if you can figure that out and see that, you won't need any attitude. None.
So they asked me, I should explain the real meaning of the all this. Because I told them the thing now is to understand the true reality life is, the all this. And I was asked in that dream vision how I could be able to explain for them to understand the real meaning of the all this. So what I experienced, something in the dream. I tried to explain it, but as I was explaining, I discovered that my whole self was leaving me, as if I was trying to get used to the all this. So a kind of something that I came, I was not able to. The effect was so much that I was not able to explain again. So I had to tell them that they should wake up and try to experience it by themselves. Then I woke up.
That was Ibiok. I'm here. Yeah,
Yes.
that's good. What I suggest is that when these questions come up, first of all, it's kind of like when you don't understand something, what do? You get the dictionary out. It's like, what does this word mean? So first of all, you start with definition for the literal self. And I would say that go to the new books, get the best definition you can, and then from how you see it, you put together your definition accordingly. Okay, so that's the idea. And so just like a student in school, when they have a lesson, they get the assignment and they go about to discover how to answer, the questions or the assignment, whatever. So you use all the resources you can. And then once you've gone through that, then you take a look at it, and I would suggest you start writing down, just take your time, writing down how you see it, and then look at what you wrote down. And again, it's in a literal sense, but it's still something. And try and see how they are seeing things, how they are asking you. Try to see it from their viewpoint as you relate it to them. Now, you can only do so much because, again, each person has to experience it for himself. So, yeah, as people say, they ask me the same question, or what is life, or what is this, or what are you all about? Well, I can sit here for hours and explain it and still won't get it. It's better that they take the time. If they're really interested, it's just like a job or a career or something. If you're really interested, then you start to put it together on your own. So read the new books for a while, do the New Year sessions, get some experience. But yourself, learn to write these things down. Learn to keep a journal and learn to really see how the others are deciding this. And you're going to better understand, again, the playing field out there of people, and you're going to have fun and take on the challenge of relating to them, because eventually, just like the boys, you're going to figure it out, and you're going to be able to relate to everything in a particular way. But, again, you can only do so much, because it's really the initiative of the individual, and you learn to see where they're coming from. So, it's a huge challenge. But you start somewhere, and we have the best references, and, you're doing it. It's really cool. And they will have experiences as they do the new you, but they got to figure them out at the same time. So that's a challenge that everybody must decide, or they don't. It's just that simple. Go ahead, young man.
So this the new you is the key on the new way. So if we can always be able to explain what it is all about, then we can have a kind of kickstarter to whoever is interested. So I make it as a duty to explain to them that it is a direct connection instead of them to pray. But they can, as soon as they start to do their new usage, they have this direct link with the true universes of the true reality life is the region of real freedom. Then they don't have to be praying and ask for any mediator to help them. Then I direct them to be watching their dream visions, and also let them read the new works, new books, and most write-ups that we have on the social media platforms. So I see that the greatest task we have to do as new friends is to be able to explain the essence and the reality of the new you to those people who are interested. So I don't know whether Duane can help me in this direction too. Let us talk about the new you itself now.
Yeah, just keep it simple. And again, you can't explain everything. You can only explain a very little. And it's like, eating your dinner. You can't eat it all at once. You don't want to eat it all at once. It's a little at a time. So you just set it in motion, and you're doing it. That's it. And see what comes of it. So every little experience, and this is where, this gives you an excuse to create the groups. People start to have experience, and you've got to, you have some experience, so you've got to be able to see that, hey, they're not going to really understand most of the time unless it's laid out for them perfectly what's going on. And most of the time it isn't, because people really have to figure it out. The boys are not going to lay out everything for everybody. And again, it's going to come to everybody a little different. And so the boys decide, and life decides what a person's going to experience and what's going to be presented to them, and see how they will handle that and what they will do with it. And so, again, there's no certain way to do anything. You just do something. That's all. You just do something and see where it goes, and then you build off of that. So what you're doing is fine. You just start it there. And again, yes, it's best that they get the reading material, but really the best position is just like what we're doing with the Skype here. I like to get to people one-to-one. And last night we had a Skype with another person, a Miss Lori, and she's been through a lot, this lady has. And whatever she's been through, it's all fine. I don't judge people or whatever. She's been through things that a lot of people haven't been through, and that's great. I see her as a risk taker and a very strong person, and she's fine. And she was very sincere. She had been through a lot, looked at a lot of things, very aware person in her own way, been through a lot of brutal things, etc. But that's all okay. She's a toughie. And so, but I could see she was very grateful because she was very intuitive also. And so this is the fun part too, as you relate to people, Ibiok, is to recognize their intuitiveness, because that's very important. That's kind of like, Ava calls it fantasy, but fantasy is reality, because fantasy is flexible. And so we got this wrong idea of fantasy, I will say that, and that is, look at all the people that, love Disney cartoons and Looney Tunes and all this stuff. Is it fantasy or is it reality? What is reality? And so again, it's all okay. And so have fun with that. Have fun with the unknown adventure. And, eventually it becomes known. But then again, it's always the unknown that is the best part because it has no restrictions. And at first, this kind of scares people. It's like, oh, I don't know what's going on there. Well, guess what? In the unknown, you have no restrictions, but everything that you do know is all restricted. So you decide. Yeah. And what's so cool, now you know about the isness. And the simplest way to describe the isness is that it is pure, real. There's no darkness. It's all complete. And all you have to do is recognize it and stand real with it. It's like, there it is. You decide. There's no effort. Yeah, etc. So the real connection, the new you, that starts it off. But keep in mind also your awareness is bigger, so you have your real awareness there. The new you acts as a vehicle to assist you. It's like a taxi cab coming to your house and picking you up and giving you a ride. But at the same time, you decide your destination, don't you? You see, so it's a kind of a give and take thing. And at the same time, you allow the taxi cab driver to drive you where you're going. But you got to decide. And this is the whole thing about life. And that is that, we have to decide. And so what do when we're looking at the systems here, what's the idea of the systems? God has a plan for you. Gee, everything's already planned out. It sounds good, doesn't it? Oh, my road trip's already planned out. Well, once you see where you're going, you're not going to like it because it ain't going where you think it's going to go. So the big plan in the sky, where's it really going? More reincarnation, more drudgery, more slavery. That's the big plan. Okay, what's so cool about the isness life is, it's so simple to describe it, is that it's bigger than the sky and there is no plan. It's endless. And you can be whatever you want. So why not be something wonderful like a being of light that supersedes everything brighter than the sun? Yes. Can you do that? Can you decide to do that? You have to decide it, don't you? But you got to start somewhere. So, and the biggest challenge is yourself, not the world, not the government, the laws, the restrictions, whatever. It's yourself, facing yourself. Do you have the courage to face yourself and get through yourself to where, you know what? It won't matter what the government and the world's doing. It won't even matter if they blow up the place. The thing is, you'll be fine in your real awareness. Yeah, now you have that reference. So I would say take advantage of it. Just keep it simple. Go ahead, Ibiok.
Yes, there's another interaction that I had with all these big men of God. We have been interacting on the on the Instagram platform. So the big man of God sent me a message that he has been searching for somebody that he will pray to. He would pray for, and God has led him to meet me so that he will be able to pray for me, and all that blah 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 blah. You know what they used to say. So what I sent to him, I went to my gallery and posted him pray for purity, and I started by saying, if you need to pray or if we need to pray, we pray only for purity. Then there's this question, which they normally ask, how do we start the prayer for purity? Because they are not used to that kind of prayer. They are based in petitions. And it's the zeal to acquire and to control. So this prayer for purity is a new dimension in the life of our people here. So I don't know how you can help me to start to tell them how to pray for purity. But my simple answer is cool down, sing the new you, and experience what you have to experience if you are ready to wake up.
That's terrific, Ibiok. You're doing it. See, you're doing it. You're out there. You're taking on the challenge. And that's why I created the idea, Church of Nature and Pray for Purity. Again, if people want a church, hey, nature can be your church. It's just a choice. I'm not establishing that. It's just an idea to play with. And pray for purity. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Most people are petitioning. They're begging. They're saying this. They're praying for others. They're deciding. It's all about control. And this is what people are taught, too. You're taught to pray for others. It's like, okay, you're a good person if you pray for others. But that's really black magic is what it is. Yes, it's better to pray for purity because life responds. In other words, life sees everything that we're doing. And so even though you don't know what purity is, eventually it can seep into where intuitively the literal side starts to get it, and the emotional side that's so attached to these old ideas that really go nowhere eventually maybe perks up, so it goes through all your bodies and eventually to the brain of the personal self. Okay, we all can't get an appointment with Dr. Frankenstein and get a new brain, so in the meantime you got to deal with your brain. All right, and so all these different parts of ourselves, and see, purity makes sense, and that is that, yes, I'm glad to hear that, and that is that this is a new thing. It's like, okay, pray for purity. That's great, you see? So you're bringing that out there, and now you get to bring in more as those that do pay attention to this. All of a sudden, you got a new challenge and a new adventure to share with them and see if they'll step up, because purity is the completeness life is, because life is purity. In other words, it's complete. And just like anything that would supposedly be pure, but don't fool yourself. There's nothing pure in creation. Creation is a secondary position as a reference. That's really what it is. That's the best way to say it. It is not something to where, okay, I'm going to be the healthiest person in the world, I'm going to be pure. Well, that's a nice idea, but it's not realistic according to the true reality life is. And so, in other words, yes, you can have that idea and you have the right to it. But when you compare it to the recognition of recognizing the true reality, then you see it is just an idea to have fun with, and that's it. And so again, you don't need to build upon it to where then it eventually everything becomes distorted. So now we have marketing ploy to where, it says this is pure, this is organic, whatever. Is it? Even the packaging isn't, and it's wrapped in whatever it is, and it ain't pure, so nothing's pure. So again, yes, thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah, that becomes your new challenge, and it's a little bit of an interesting position, and we'll see how the world responds to it, because you don't hear it. Do you ever hear the Pope say pray for purity? No, it's always begging God for what you want, so you stay a slave, and then when you do get something, give it to us because we'll take care of it for you. Yes, thank you for sharing. That's so cool, Ibiok.